Hello everyone, welcome to Metal Fantasy. I'm Zack, and this is the spoiler section for Rhythm of War. So if you don't want to get spoiled, please don't watch this video because I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. I'm probably going to be missing a few, but we're going to be really spoiling this book quite a lot. So I'm going to give you all about 5 seconds. Okay, so you've either read the book or you just like to be spoiled, which is okay because sometimes being spoiled for something can help with the enjoyment of it. But where do I even begin? This book turned my brain into putty a little bit. It reminds me a lot of like Cate Blanchett at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where the aliens are like, give me all the information. No, there's too much and my head explodes, is what I felt like 90% of this book, especially near the end. And it got to the point of where when we get to the hugest thing that I felt was in this book, my brain just went like this. And I'll just get to it first because I might just explode because I'm so giddy. Because that's the great thing about this book series is that there are moments like this where you can be giddy. And I've been completely dark. I haven't been on social media much except for to post like little small reactions. So I haven't really seen what people's reactions to this whole story is. I haven't even looked at a review. So I'm sure what I'm going to be talking about, a lot of my contemporaries will be talking about. Some things I'm probably going to be getting right. Some things I might be getting a little off because I'm going to be rereading the book again. But when it comes down to it, I think the biggest thing that blew my mind, I had to put the book down and just stop and think because my brain was just leaking out of my ears, was that Terravangium becomes Odium. Oh man, was this so weird and unexpected, because I was always expecting Terravangium to be the person that would save the world, like it would be like his compassion or something. But no, he becomes Odium. Seth kills him right, and he's able to, in essence, because of cultivation, able to kill Odium with night blood and assume the role of Odium. And it is weird, it is wacky. I don't even know what's going to be happening with this because we have all these rules in place, and Terravangium is so excited for this because he isn't going to just stop. He isn't thinking small about Roshar. He's going to help all the Cosmere. This is how he's going to do it. And I love this type of stuff. I love these type of maneuvering, especially with cultivation, thinking 97 steps ahead, because that's the weird thing. The reason why she made Terravangium smart and dumb is to pretty much lead him up to the moment where he gets killed and just becomes Odium. And this is awesome. It makes me more worried about maybe cultivation being the real villain of this piece, especially when it comes to the roles of Lift, and also when it comes, we already know the stuff with like Adaland, but all the things she's playing behind the scenes, and I think this is one of the biggest ones, though I feel like it's probably easier to control Terravangium than controlling the original Odium, because Terravangium can almost be predictable because he has, passion, and he's very, ruled by his emotions and feelings in a way that Odium doesn't. So this is going to be interesting to play with a very predictable person in a way, with having the duel, and we're going to see a lot with this, but this is the thing that really exploded on my mind. Now, the overall theme of the story, I know I talked about war, but I feel like the overall theme of Rhythm of War isn't a story really about war all that much. Like, yes, it is. That's like the baseline theme, but I feel like the main theme of Rhythm of War is change. You can't continue doing the exact same thing over and over again and expecting things to be the same, because in the end, even in war, everything changes. Every character in this experiences some change in a way that makes them a better person. We see this with Adaland, giving up his command in a sense and learning to be a bondsmith. We see this with Caledon, being almost washed out of being like a windrunner of his command and giving it up to like Sigil and the rest of Bridge 4. And what is he going to be doing with this, because he's depressed, overworked, and the only thing that he knows is to keep doing the exact same thing. And we see how he changes, because he isn't going to just be a person that murders, but he's a person that's going to be helping people that have depression, PTSD, every affliction when it comes to, he's going to be pretty much doing like psychology and really helping with, mind trauma compared to doing, physical stuff, because the physical stuff can be done with like Lyrin and special healing, but when it comes to the mental stuff, this is where Caledon is going to be a really interesting character moving forward, especially helping people And moving forward, I'm loving Caledon for this, especially how he's able to help Dabbit, and a lot of other people, especially helping Teft, was so great and so interesting. Though I was expecting the whole book to be like that, and I was very happy when it became almost... This is going to be weird, I'm sure people brought this up, if not, I might be the first, but the majority of Caledon's story in Urithiru is Die Hard, and I mean literally Die Hard. I think Brandon Sanderson might have been leading a little too much into this because I was noticing there were a lot of eerie similarities between Urithiru's occupation and Die Hard with Bruce Willis. There are moments that we see, like, when it comes to Die Hard, I will just bring this up, is that Die Hard's a movie that I absolutely love. I watch it during Christmas because it's a Christmas movie, you can fight me later, but in that movie we see a character that's in theory invincible, but as the story progresses, he gets hurt more, he is damaged, he has to root around through elevator shafts and ventilation, and even at a part where he loses his shoes and is forced to come up with new things, Caledon does all of this. He goes all throughout Urithiru, pretty much like the Nakatomi Plaza, and there's even a part where he loses his shoes, there's a part where he's horribly injured, not with his feet, but he's to the point of near death. And there are a lot of moments that it feels like an 80s action movie. I mean, there is the thing of, after Die Hard came out, every movie wanted to be Die Hard, to the point of where there's actually Die Hard clones, so you would call it, instead of, oh, it's like Die Hard, you would say, oh, it's Die Hard in the Sky, that's Air Force One. Die Hard on a Train, I think it's called Under Siege, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's also, I guess, The Rock Die Hard, but in Alcatraz. You have like these little elements, so you have that. And I noticed that with Caledon throughout the story is, he's a lot like John McClane because he shouldn't have been where he was when Urithiru fell, but yet he was, and he was the thorn in the side of the whole thing until the very end. And there's like still a lot of similarities between that, but also between, when it comes to Caledon, I really enjoyed his relationship between him and his father Lirin, because it's a lot like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade between Henry Jones Sr. and Indiana Jones. I mean, maybe because I rewatched The Last Crusade recently because of R.I.P. Sean Connery. So I noticed that the relationship between Lirin and Caledon are very similar to them, to the point of where, at the end, when Caledon saves Lirin from falling, they have this acceptance that I really do enjoy. It's almost like in Last Crusade where Indy gives up the Holy Grail because Henry Jones Sr. is like, let her go, Indiana. Because that's the first time he's ever called him Indiana. And we see this almost the exact same thing here when he turns Lirin around. He sees that he has the exact same sash as Caledon had, and we have this letting go moment where Lirin is going to accept him no matter what. And I thought that was so great. I thought that dynamic was really nice, especially how Lirin in the majority of this book is this mean, awful person, but you can understand why he's this mean, awful person, to the point of where it actually hurt my heart, especially when Caledon was killing in the little clinic that he made and helped with his parents, that it broke my heart. But because we had chapters with Lirin, we had chapters with Caledon's mom, we understand what was happening with this. And I found that to be so engaging in a way of, the power struggles between father and son, because the hero's journey, if we look at it, is usually finding the father or coming to a reconciliation with the dad in a way. Caledon doesn't have daddy issues all that much, he has expectation issues, but here is a way that he's able to let go in a way that seems really healthy, in a way that I really did enjoy. And even when it comes to, you can't save everyone. I mean, Caledon says his fourth ideal, pretty much, he can't save everyone. And he has to accept that because in the end, you can't save everyone. You can't be a superhero in that way. And I found that to be so touching, especially how he saves his dad, especially giving up and letting go of Tien in a way where he has that setup, and then the payoff is he gets Tien's flute at the end. Like, there are a lot of moments like that that really warmed my heart. And we see this more with different changes. One of my favorites was Adaland. Adaland from The Way of Kings to Rhythm of War is almost like a completely different character, but yet he's still the same. I love this whole almost Nuremberg-like trial that he goes on. He figures out the weakness of the honor sprint is you have to play to their honor, but do it in a way that actually works. So he puts himself on trial for the recreants. And it's almost like a drumhead trial. For people that don't know, it's more of a court-martial thing, but it's pretty much people being like, you're guilty. Like, it's just a trial. I guess better would be like kangaroo court, but I don't feel that's appropriate here. is that it's just a sham trial. It's pretty much to just find someone guilty. And Adaland takes it in stride, especially when he's giving his, defense and he's giving his statements, and all these Spren are like, yeah, F you, did they kill your Spren, blah, 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 blah. And he's put up on trial in this way, where it's almost appropriate, but at the same time, you knew that it was almost kind of be getting off a little bit, especially when we find out who the judge is. The judge is the Herald Kellic. And we have like these little moments of brilliance and also sadness. But at the same moment, what I loved about it is that Adaland is pretty much assuming a new role as a leader rather than being like his father. He's becoming his own person. We see this between the dynamics between him and Shallan, where they almost have very similar dynamics. They're both trying to anchor each other, but whereas Adaland's failings is like, oh, what do I do with this? I don't want to be like my father, so I'm owning up to my responsibility in these impossible odds. And I love that. I love that so much, especially with him and Maya at the end. Like, we made our own sacrifice. We find out that the Spren and the Radiant, they made the agreement together. It wasn't just the Radiants were just like, we're gonna kill our Spren. They did it willingly and sacrificed, like Adaland was doing. He was almost sacrificing himself in a weird way, where he's gonna be imprisoned for almost all of his life as an oddity in like the zoo. Yeah, that was kind of weird, but we also see this with Shallan. We see this with Radiant, Vale, and Shallan. There's just change. And for me, I got a little emotional when Vale went away. She disappeared. I liked Vale a lot, but it was appropriate. You can't keep doing the exact same thing. Something gets worse, you make a new personality. You can't do that. Trauma is something that is with you, and the only way to improve it is to face it head on and not make these blockers. And, Shallan's a very strong character, and when it came to the whole thing with like Formless, I was, oh no, but we see this with Vale, and we see this with how everyone needs to trust each other, especially with Shallan, who turns out prior to having Pattern, she had a different Spren. And this is, the heartbreaking stuff, because she's going on this whole mission. The whole purpose of doing the stuff with the Goatsplits is to figure out her whole past, and she kind of figures it out. Though, I like the Goatsplits because we find out they're not just, based in Roshar. They're, almost like Illuminati, like ghost blood, like Freemason, secret society. And it took me to the last second to realize who their leader was, to the point of where I screamed. I did not know this, and this is a huge spoiler for the Cosmere, but the leader of the Ghostbloods, not Mraize, but the person in front of him, is Kelsier, Lord of Scars. It was bothering me a little bit until they kept bringing it up. And when I figured it out, I gasped, because all the clues were leading right up to it until the last piece came into place with that chapter with Mraize, where he's explaining all the stuff with Shallan. And it's interesting. I love this type of stuff, especially with the connection between the Cosmere and the greater scope of things. We see this a lot with autopsies of Elantrians. We see this with travelers coming from Nulthus. We see this a lot with the Ghostbloods. I thought that their main purpose was to be almost they're war merchants, they're war profiteers. They're trying to weaponize Stormlight by creating a proxy war in this way, and being able to use it on different planets, and have almost a resource war, I thought was so cool. And I guess it's more nefarious than that. There's a lot more things working on. There's even more secret societies, especially when we get the Taft with his parents being in a weird cult, but they were kind of right in a way. And we see this again with Shallan. We have all this change, and we have this understanding, and she comes face to face with all of her problems, and all she needs to do is not let go, but she needs to embrace who she is. And I found that to be so great about the story. We get to Venli and Eshonai. What can I say about them? Venli changes in a way that I kind of like, but it's a slow burn. It's, she flip-flops, what is she supposed to do? She accidentally kind of made genocide, but at the same time, she's now a Radiant, so she's flip-flopping between factions to the end when she figures out she can make her own decisions, make her own paths, and she discovers that, her mom's still alive, and a lot of the listeners actually survived a lot of the events of Words of Radiance. Though I had one problem with this, is that when we're going into the flashback chapters, she totally got Darth Vader'd a little bit when Palpatine's I could save Padme. We get this exact same thing because, Venli's mom actually has, I'm going to assume it's Alzheimer's. You know, her memory's going. She doesn't know where she is. She's confused. And this was heartbreaking type of stuff. I've seen people that, you know, have Alzheimer's and what it really does. And these were some of the hardest chapters to read, especially with, you know, Venli's mom and her affliction. Like, it was kind of, you know, it was heartbreaking to me. But at the same time, you get to the Eshonai stuff. I found the Eshonai stuff to be more interesting because she cares about her mom, but she also has this curiosity. And when we get to the part where Eshonai, you know, we get to the last chapter of their flashback where she dies, and she gets rewarded by being able to see all of Roshar from atmosphere, is so nice because, you know, she gets this closure in this way that I really found was so appropriate. Though I thought for a second, oh, thank God, they're bringing Eshonai back. Like, she didn't die, she like faked her death in a way. Because they've set up things with the magic system with, you can have different bodies a little bit. But, you know, we're not into that part of the magic system. And every time I talk about magic systems, I'm always wrong. But, you know, she dies and she's going to be going to the greater world beyond, though she's filled with a lot of investiture. So who knows, maybe she might come back a little bit as a cognitive shadow. We will find out about that. Though, my favorite standout character in all of this was actually Nivani. I love Nivani. And Nivani is a character that I didn't really care for all that much throughout the other books. Like, she's there. But her chapters, every time she was on page, she was the best. She was one of my favorite characters from her flashback in the beginning with the prologue. You know, she gets gaslit by Gavilar, and how Gavilar is not a nice person. We kind of forget that, you know, women dictate the history, so they can write whatever they need to do, especially they have, like, their little thing where they write little mean notes to people. We see that in this, and we see this especially when it comes to Nivani. You know, she's been abused, she's been gaslit her entire life, where she doesn't feel like she's worthy of being a scholar. Even though she's the smartest person there, it was great to see that, especially her relationship with the Fuse and kind of coming up with the rhythm of war and anti-void light and void light. And, you know, she bonds with the sibling. One of my favorite parts about this book is actually when Nivani is doing the trace the call sequence. Okay, you gotta keep her on the line, you gotta keep her talking. And we see this, they're trying to triangulate where the Sprint is sending these mysterious messages to her. And that was like one of my favorite parts because I just felt the techno music start playing as she's just trying to figure out ways to stall and keep talking. I thought that was so great. And there's like those little moments that you just have like those highlights, those echoes of just action movies and fantasy in that way that I really, really did admire. And, you know, she becomes a Bondsmith, and we're going to see what happens with that. I'm really, really always enthralled when we see these things because I felt like there were like 3 possibilities of who the sibling was going to bond with because it's a little predictable. She's going to bond with someone. It's either going to be the listener from Bridge 4, it's either going to be Dabbit, or it's going to be her. And in the end, it was just her. I felt like that was going to be always the case. I was just waiting for that because Brandon Sanderson has these moments where he writes, especially with Caledon with his oaths, where it's almost on the rails, like you're cornered like this. And it gets to the point in the narrative where that's the only thing to progress. You have these unbelievable obstacles where you have no other choice but to bond or say your words. And I was just waiting for that, and, you know, it happens, and that's fine. Though the thing that made me a little sad was, again, we're going back to change. I kind of got sad that Teft died. I actually was really growing attached to Teft and how he kind of overcame his addiction to the part where he actually got excited that he didn't use, you know, drugs anymore when he passed out because when the defenses of Earth Hero changed, he got unconscious. I thought that was so great, and in the end, he gets acceptance, he finds a new family, he finds a purpose, and in the end, he succeeds where everyone else in his family kind of failed in a way. And, you know, he gets a king's death, he gets a king's funeral, even though he wasn't a king. I loved it. And we see this a lot with the breaking of Bridge 4 a lot. We see this with Rock. He's going back to the Horn-Eater Peaks, and they didn't show anything else with Rock. I'm going to assume that's going to be the whole novella, because Brandon Sanderson's talked about he wants to write a novella in the Horn-Eater Peaks. So we're going to see what happens with that. You know, the whole military occupation stuff was great. Even the stuff with Dabbit, I loved Dabbit in this. It was so great to like get into his mind and figure out, you know, it's, again, this is, you know, Brandon Sanderson's doing something very deliberate where he's showing mental illness. He's showing that Dabbit, in all intents and purposes, you know, he's much like Renard, he also has autism, but he's kind of, he doesn't, what's the best way to put it? Because it's hard to explain this because I have Asperger's. So one of the stuff when it came to Dabbit stuff, like feeling different, feeling weird, is, if I'm going to open up a little bit, a lot of that Dabbit stuff is 100% true. You feel different, you feel strange, you hate when people call you an idiot. You're good at certain things, but at the same time, you're not good at other things. I can remember a lot of things, have useless information, not stop talking, and always have something I have to play with. But at the same time, you always want to have that feeling of normalcy, which when it comes to Dabbit, the only reason why he wants to be radiant, he's doing it for the wrong reason, so he can get his mind fixed. And if he does ever get his, spren, it's not going to be the case. He's going to always be who he is, and I love that a little bit. I felt like that was the honest depiction that honestly, maybe a little teary-eyed a little bit. And I just wanted to say, Brandon Sanderson, if you're watching this, thank you so much for those couple chapters with Dabbit. It really meant a lot to me in a way that I can't fathom. That's kind of the stuff that I really enjoyed. Sorry. Other stuff that I really liked was Yazna. Yazna's Banff material. I love the whole chapter where Yazna puts on shard plate and is like kicking butt and taking names, but she's experiencing the horrors of war, being a leader. You aren't just being the queen or the king or the monarch who is sitting back and just looking at casualty numbers. She's in the thick of it. She isn't pounding her chest and being like, that was a good charge. I feel like that's from a movie. I can't remember what movie it was, but you thump your chest. That was a good charge. But, she gets in the thick of it, and we kind of get the setup of the whole duel thing, but I loved when she, stabbed the guy in the neck, and it's like, oh yeah, you've lost, you're technically dead, but I'm going to heal you and shame you for the rest of your life. I love Yazna. Her chapters are so great. Yazna's such an interestingly mean, horrible, witchy person that I love her to the point of, she's great. Yeah, who have I missed? I probably missed a lot of concepts and a lot of themes and a lot of things. But at the end of the day, I love this book. This book does have a lot of standout moments. Things that, the beginning opens up almost like Indiana Jones. You have the adventure before the real adventure. I guess it's also like James Bond a little bit, in media res. And by the end of it, it's weird. It has like this somber feel to it. The entire time I was reading it, I had this weird sense of dread. And I almost had like an existential crisis a little bit while reading it because I'm focusing my whole attention to the book to the point of where I'm not sure what else is going on. My feelings are just so put into this book. I feel, useless and Yurathiru with the rest of everyone, the Radiants being incapacitated. And it was such an interestingly somber feeling. I finished the book last night and I thought about it for 12 hours. I wrote a bunch of notes down. And again, it's a book about change. And Yurathiru changes. Dalinar changes. I liked Dalinar stuff. Seth's stuff was great too. If you read The Way of Kings and then go all the way to Rhythm of War, compare the characters like Dalinar, Adaland, any of those POV chapters, and then compare them to the end of Rhythm of War. They've evolved into almost completely different characters in a way that's great. Now the last thing I want to talk about, I think this is the biggest, is Dalinar is going to be doing the duel. He's going to be doing the challenge with Odium. And if he wins, Odium has to go away, but they're going to have to try to figure out how to coexist with the Singers and the Fused. But if Odium wins, he gets to leave, and also Dalinar becomes the Fused, and this is all bad stuff, but again, he gets to keep all the locations. It's going to be, Book 5 is going to be almost an armistice, or a ceasefire for a little bit. No matter what the outcome is going to be, Book 6 is going to be real weird, but Book 5 is going to be the huge conflict. Though I'm interested to see what they're going to be expanding upon, because by the end we have Caledon's going to go into Shinovar, and you have 10 days. So it's going to be a little bit like Majora's Mask. The book is going to be at the last minute, at the last hour, at the last second. The whole eventually going to get wrapped up, because now that you're in this confined time limit of 10 days before this challenge, this book's going to go snap, 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 snap. And we're going to see, especially, that the book has no, there isn't a wait period. The book is going to start where Rhythm of War ends, and we're just going to hit the ground running and see what's going to be happening, especially in Shinovar. I'm also interested to see what happens with Shallan. She's pissed off the Goatsplits. Now that we know that they're a whole Cosmere thing, she has the Illuminati coming after her. So we're going to be seeing what's going to be happening with that, especially with her siblings, which I'm kind of confused. You know, Oathbringer has a whole thing with, you know, the siblings and getting, you know, siblings here, but they never use them whatsoever in the narrative, which is baffling to me. We get the one, you know, interlude chapter in The Way of Kings, but I found that to be, why have them there in the narrative and not have a POV from them really, or really have them going on the quest or the adventure in that way, was really baffling to me. We're gonna see the stuff with Dalinar and, you know, getting ready for this champion. I'm actually gonna be curious to see who Odium's champion is going to be. I don't think it's gonna be Moash, because Moash was the worst in this book. I'm not the F Moash type, but he felt like he was there. Like, he's dressed in all black. He's like, I'm the villain of the piece. Ha ha ha. And it was dumb. I did not like Moash, Veer, whatever the hell you want to call him. He was kind of bad. And now we have the biggest thing. The biggest thing is that we've kind of found the mechanics of how to kill Radiant Spren and also how to kill the Fused. And now that both sides have this, it has become less a war of territorial control and has now become a war of attrition and also possibly a war of genocide. So we're going to see what's going to be happening with this. Again, if you go back to the war stuff, this whole book was an arms race. I actually did a whole video earlier when I started this whole channel talking about what was the biggest things. Some of them I got kind of right, a lot of them I got wrong, especially the Gavilar stuff. I apologize for that. But we get a bunch of this stuff with this arms race, and now that both of them have the equivalent of a nuke, I was waiting for the whole nuke stuff because they had the whole explosion. And I was waiting, okay, we have this little thing that Gavilar has can do this much damage to a couple Ardents. Just imagine if you had a perfect sphere or something that has a lot of Stormlight and you were able to weaponize it. Yeah, you're gonna have a crater, you're gonna have a new Shattered Plains, but we don't have that, and that's the scary thing. It's now become a war of attrition, and we're gonna be getting some more war crimes, everyone. So get excited for Stormlight 5, The War Crimes of War. That's what I'm gonna be calling the book. I don't know what it's gonna be called, but we'll figure it out. It's gonna be interesting, it's gonna be great. I am excited, and I might reread the book, I might reread the series. I know I'm going to be doing more of Wheel of Time stuff now that I have 3 years to wait. It's going to be great to go back in this book and look at the little details, look at the little themes, and really get into the nitty-gritty, because in the end, it's a great book. I recommend it. It's a book that Stormlight means a lot to me, especially this book had these little moments that really made a lot of stuff that had a real emotional impact to me. So I just wanted to say thank you, Brandon Sanderson. Everyone that's watching this, thank you so much. What did you guys feel about this book? What are your favorite parts? Were there things that, you know, hit you on an emotional level? Were there things that I missed out? Because there's a lot. This book goes over, over 1,000 pages, so some things get lost in the shuffle. But I just wanted to say thank you all so much for watching this video. If you haven't had a chance, subscribe down below. Maybe give this video a like. I'd really appreciate that. You're all amazing people, and I just wanted to say thank you all so much. This was a fun journey. I actually kind of got a little excited. I'm like, okay, I'm reading this book, we're making a video, but I also want to be making videos because I love interacting with you all, and this is such a great opportunity. I just want to say thank you all so much. Well, everyone, like always, may your food and drink ever be tasteful, and may your books be filled with fantasy and adventure. Bye, everyone. See ya!